This night two of the budget session process. Recess has ended. And we'll go ahead and get started. If you have noticed at your table this evening is an updated copy of the Form 4B. Thank you, Angie, for preparing that. Is there any other, there's some other document that you had to put in our book as well?
Yeah, just an updated budget request worksheets. There was also a raise history worksheet, a raise worksheet with a 1% or 1,000 as a calculation, just for guide. And then I had some other replacement sheets.
Again, Angie, thank you. And I'll go ahead and go over the budget goals. This is night 2 of 4 of the budget process, and our number one goal is to adopt a reasonable budget, one that meets the needs and minimizes the needs for additional appropriations. Number 2, have a reasonable wage and benefits for our employees. And number 3, maintain a reasonable operating balance for each of our funds. And the definition of a reasonable operating balance is at least 10% of the fund's budget. First budget before us this evening will be the weights and measures. Before you get started, I just want to remind you, as years past, we'll go through each department as they come before us. We'll listen to all your requests. However, we'll only take action on the non-personnel items tonight, but if you would start with your personnel.
Most of my personnel, I had no requests for an increase. I'm a one-man department and I have never asked for an increase. Whenever you guys have given across the board increases, I've always willingly accepted that.
We appreciate that. Are there any questions on the weights and measures salary piece? There are none. Proceed on.
My budget is exactly the same as last year with one change, and that is in the equipment budget. I reduced it from 600 to 300. We finished last year. We went 5 years where we were buying 100 pounds of new weights, and we wanted to get up to 500, and we accomplished that last year. So I dropped it back down to what our normal was. So our budget's $300 less requested than what we had last year.
Are there any questions or comments from the members? If there are none, I entertain a motion regarding categories 2, 3, and 4.
Mr. President, move to approve categories 2, 3, and 4 for weights and measures.
I have a motion from Mr. Scott, a second from Mr. Poling to approve within the weights and measures categories 2, 3, and 4 as presented. Any other questions or comments from the members? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, same sign. Motion carries.
Thank you very much.
Next budget before us this evening will be the Veterans Affair.
Good evening. The only thing I asked for to change in the budget is the travel and conference, other than personnel. Last year I was advised that I have a travel and conference budget that years prior, when I went to state mandated training with the Indiana Department of Veterans Affairs, it was always paid out of the general fund. The travel and conference budget for my office was used for other training outside of that, and also going to see veterans at their home, those kinds of things. So I just asked for an increase of $500 this year to cover that expense for the state mandated conference.
Any questions or comments regarding the Veterans Affair budget?
That'll cover it from your estimation?
Should. If not, I will make it till next year.
So if no other questions or comments, I entertain a motion.
Mr. President, regarding Veterans Affairs, move to approve categories 2 and 3 as presented.
Second.
I have a motion from Mr. Powell, a second from Mr. Perez to approve the Veterans Affairs categories 2 and 3 as presented. Any other questions or comments from the members? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, same sign. Motion carries.
Thank you. Thank you.
The next budget before us this evening will be the area plan, along which runs safe building fund.
You guys are moving quick.
Huh?
Since you guys are moving quick. You should have an updated on the personnel. We updated with the changes that we made last month. I kind of put it together with either a no raise, a 3% raise, or a $1,000 raise. With what we did last month, I would be looking, as far as the raises go, Nicole moved up to building inspector at equal pay. And also for my part-time, I would be looking at 3% raises for them. Everyone else kind of received a substantial raise with the changes we made. The other thing I'm looking to do and ask again is trying to get my code enforcement secretary up to full-time. She would go from 18,491 part-time up to 28,000 as a full-time position. For her, again, that would be a substantial raise. So the raises, unless you guys give a blanket raise, which we wouldn't be opposed to, but we also wouldn't be unhappy in understanding either.
If you was to receive the full-time code enforcement secretary, then we eliminate some full-time monies.
Yeah, we would get rid of 18,000 on the part-time. Right now, they're 18,000 each. So the salary wise would go from 18 to 28. Obviously, the benefits are added onto there too. My hope is that getting that to full-time and getting our software up and live will finally get us to a position to be fully efficient. I've got some, if you look in here, we've always talked about that position and the fact that area plan really doesn't generate a lot of revenue. If you look back, hopefully, I think Angie, did you, for the estimated cost of construction for building permits, we had records all the way back to 2009 on what our estimated costs are for construction. And although we don't generate a lot of revenue, what we are responsible for is, if you look for 2023 through August 1st, we have done an estimated $28 million of estimated permit construction that we're responsible for. 2022, we did 31 million, 2021, 36 million. For that amount of construction cost, we have one individual doing inspections.
Who submits the construction cost?
That's as permits come in, if they're building a house, they'll say 275,000. So that goes into the permit. If they're doing a roof, 15,000. If they're doing an addition, 40,000. So, I mean, their estimated cost in this day and age, they come in and say it's 2,000. It's probably more like 3,000 by the time they're done. But this is the actual numbers that we have.
Are there any questions or comments from the members regarding salary piece of the area plan?
What's the current estimate for a benefit package that we're using right now?
17.
17, so. Okay. So 10 plus the 17.
I'm not hearing any other questions, so you can move on to your meetings.
Uh, So as far as the budget items go, we took printing supplies from 400 down to 0. For the most part, we were only buying our receipt books out of that. We still have a couple of receipt books left, and our new software should replace that. The other item would be for legal services, and we kind of talked about this a little bit in the last council meeting. We are looking to increase our legal services from 12,000 to 20,000. With the hours that our previous attorney turned in, that gets his pay around 150 per hour. So we're looking for an increase there. We did go through the commissioners, and the commissioners did add a line item for major litigation for that position.
Within their budget, commissioner budget.
They've always had a legal,
Okay.
put in their budget.
Then from there, photo blueprinting and legal, we went from 1,000 down to 500. We primarily raised that through the solar ordinance because we were publicating the meeting so much. So we lowered that back down to 500. And then just noted in the garage and motor, we're at 15,000. I had recommended to the area planning commission that we could drop that down to 10 if needed. They recommended keeping it up at 15. Gas prices, we had taken it up to 15 because gas prices were over $4 and now they're down to like 2.48, I think was the last billing. And also our building inspector is no longer driving the truck home and back. I would note our building inspector truck now has 193,000 miles on it. We bought that brand new in 2014. And the code enforcement truck that's 130. Both are running fine right now, but yeah. We got a light on today for it says the gas cap wasn't tight enough and there was a pressure issue between the gas tank. Truck doesn't have a gas cap. So I don't know what we do with that.
Any questions or comments from the members regarding the area plans, budget, regarding 2, 3. Service is a big job, but conversation that somebody wants to do, attorneys. That was,
We had 5 people come in for the job and every one of them said, oh, we'd love to do it. What about the money?
and does that include the BZA?
Yes. We had one tell us that he wouldn't do it for less than $3.50 an hour.
Okay.
Inflation. If there's no other questions or comments, I entertain a motion.
Mr. President, regarding area plan, move to approve categories 2, 3, and 4 as presented.
Second.
I have a motion from Mr. Scott, a second from Mr. Perez to approve the area plans budget categories 2, 3, and 4 as presented. All those in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, same sign. Motion carries. For the unsafe building fund.
And with that, we're requesting the 50,000. I've also included, because we haven't had a building inspector in 6 months and Nicole's been having to do building inspector. We've only got about 5 structures ready for demolition. The hope between Katie and Grace, we're going to dive in. We've got paperwork piled up on the desk right now to get to attorney, to get to court, so
That two places, 'cause it's a non-reverting fund.
Right, it's.
Yeah. So the current balance of the unsafe building fund is the 46,744.
That's great.
Okay, are there any questions or comments regarding the unsafe building fund? If not, I'd entertain a motion.
Move to approve as presented.
Second. I have a motion from Mr. Scott, a second from Mr. to approve the unsafe fund, category 3 as presented. Any other questions, comments from the members? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, same sign. Motion carries. I believe that's all we have.
And I would like to know, since you guys have given us that 50,000 per year, we have been able to get 26 demolitions done, which is more than the last 20 years combined. So thank you guys.
Thank you.
More done than the last 20 years combined.
It says they've done more in the last 20 years combined. The next department before us this evening for their budget request would be the extension, county extension office.
Good evening. Okay, so looking at our budget under personnel services, the salaries and part-time, we put in for 10% increase. That was what was recommended to us, but of course we'll go with what the council decides on that, but that was what was recommended. We did increase the overtime by not even quite $300, so that maybe next year I won't have to come and request a transfer after the fair. So we did increase that a little bit just to hopefully cover that and alleviate that next year. So you want me to do contractual services there or wait till,
Want to, I guess that is.
I didn't know, if it's a salary, so I didn't know if you wanted that. Okay, so under contractual services, that is our contractual service with Purdue University for the educators here in the county. Currently, we have 2.5 educators. And we put in the budget that has been presented for 3 full-time educators. So that is the amount that is listed there. But we also gave you the amount down below for the 2.5. Hopefully you'd give us the 3, but that's what the other amount is down there. So
You know how long we've been at the two?
it's been several years now, yes. It's probably pushing 8 to 10 years now, I would say.
Is there any questions or comments regarding the salary piece within the extension office? If there are none, would it?
Okay. And I don't think anything else changed on our budget. Everything stayed the same. We're in good shape with all that. Didn't need to request any additional money or anything, so I don't think there was any, if I recall, we didn't. Yeah, we didn't increase it. Oh, well, maybe we did, sorry. Looks like we did increase equipment a little bit. Sorry, I forgot about that.
No.
No, we didn't? Oh, okay. Oh, duh, I'm looking at the wrong part. Sorry, I'm looking at the wrong column there. Yes, so yeah, I think everything stayed the same on the rest of the budget.
Is there any other questions or comments from a member? Entertain a motion.
Mr. President, regarding county extension, I move to approve category 2 as presented, category 3 as presented with the following change, reducing contractual services to 92,125, category 4 as presented.
Second. I have a motion from Mr. Scott, a second from Mr. Poling to approve within the county extension of categories 2 and category 3 with the contractual services move to 92,125. And category 4 as presented. Any other questions or comments? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, same sign.
No.
One no. Motion does carry.
Thank you.
Thank you. The next department before us this evening will be the sheriff.
Good evening, Mr. President, members of the council. Present my budget to you for the salary portion. I know right now that the union part is still under negotiation. I understand it. However, I did request a 4% pay increase, actually trying to stay with the cost of living adjustment that we're requesting, which could be anywhere between 3% and 8% for 2024. The other request that I did make specifically was to raise the chief deputy's position from currently from making $60,241 to $70,241 for a $10,000 pay. The reason for that request is that he's making less than our captains, has more responsibility. When I'm away, he's responsible to run the department. We also have him in charge of both the patrol division and the detective division. If you guys are familiar with our chief, JK, he puts in a lot of time and effort into that job, a lot of overtime that he's not paid for, a lot of time that he's coming in for different things, whether it's a homicide, different drug buys with the Gene team or whatever major crime we have. So I did request a $10,000 increase for him to get him above what our captains were making.
Any other questions or comments from the members? Proceed on to your vote,
Okay.
sir.
Most of everything, and we did have a few changes on the institutional and janitorial. We are requesting an increase on that. Looks like in 2023, it was 60,000. And we're requesting it to go up to 75,000. Part of the reason why is supply prices have gone up. And those supplies are actually used to clean the jail by our staff and the trustees that are working in the jail. And most of that is due to the increase in prices, whether it's laundry detergent or cleaning supplies that we get for the jail. We also had a increase from $5,000 to $10,000 in canine supplies. We were able to add a couple dogs or canines to our program. We added 2 bloodhounds. What those are used for is to help in search for young children who maybe who've walked away from their home. I know they were deployed when we had the incident in Wabash. We assisted them when a 5-year-old child walked into a cornfield. We were able to deploy the canines in that situation. And the canine actually, before it got to the point where he had to take a rest, was only a few hundred yards from where the child was found. Our canine officer advised the search party, hey, that he's going right this way, and about 100 yards or so from where our canine was at, the child was found. So we're needing more money for supplies, for dog food, and also for medical bills for our canines. And then the other increase that we have is for medical and hospital, and I do have representatives from QCC, who's our vendor, for our medical in the jail. One thing that you are aware of is as sheriff, we are, by state statute, we have to take care of the inmates, which means provide medical care. That's something that we have to do by law. We did a study at the first of the year where we had the National Institute of Jails come in to kind of see where we were at overall, not necessarily the building, but operational, our medical facility. They recommended that we should go to 24/7 care anytime, and our vendor also recommends that anytime you have 300 or more inmates, you should have 24/7 care, or at least as close to that as possible. Right now, we have around 72 hours of care for the inmates. So we have 2 nurses that currently work. They both work day shift. We have no care in the evening hours for the inmates. We have no care for the inmates on the weekends. So what we did at the beginning of the year while we're trying to kind of look at all of our contracts to see what we can do better in the jail, we looked at our medical contract and we ended up getting other bids from other vendors. And the reason you see the number of 400, an increase of 100%, whether because that's what the other vendors were doing or the price that they gave us. However, QCC came way under those numbers. So that number isn't really what we need. So we have kind of three options that QCC gave us to try to meet the 24/7 care that we believe we need to maintain or to take care of the inmates that were governed by the state statute. To get the 24/7 care that is recommended, that would give us 100 nursing hours, 136 hours per week, and it would provide 208 hours of medical coverage per week. And that'd be an increase to get us there of $279,784.15 to get us to the 24/7 care with nurses. QCC advised us that obviously the budget's a lot higher for nursing than it is for medically trained personnel, which the state has approved that we could use. And it meets the standards for medical care for the jail. If we were to go with option 3 for them or 3A, it's an increased current nurses hours to 8 hours per week and adding 168 hours for medically trained personnel. And that would get us to 24/7 coverage with that. What that does for us right now is we have jail staff that's not trained to pass out medications, but because of the situation we're in with the medical care, we have jail staff that is passing out medications. What the medically trained personnel will be able to do, they will be able to pass out the medications because that's what they're trained to do. It will also help us with having people that are trained, have more training than what our jail staff does of dealing with medical issues that arise, whether it's in the evening time or the weekends. And what we've done with this is looking at our contract, we're also going to adjust the hours that both nurses work. Because right now coming in, they both work the same hours, day shift, same hours. So they both leave at the same time. So part of our plan is to make sure that we stagger those hours. So we have nursing staff here even into the evening hours. The other option that they gave us, which would be an increase of 56,000. Well, let me go to tell you what the increase is for that second option that I mentioned. That's $203,298.15. The third option will be $56,532.51. And what that will give us is the ability to have the hour or increase the hours for the nurses, and also gives us 84 hours for our medically trained personnel. That'll put us in a better position than when we are right now. Obviously, for liability purposes, we want to try to get as close to the 24/7 care. I don't know if you read or seen a few weeks ago where we had an inmate. It ended up being a natural cause heart disease issue in the jail. He ended up dying at the hospital, but it all started in the jail. And so we need to make sure that we're taking proper care of our inmates. So we're asking for that increase. Obviously, we like the 24/7 with nurses, but we know sometimes that may not be possible. So I'd like for you at least to consider one of the other options if you don't want to go with that 24/7 care with nurses.
So what's the total cost of the third option?
The 24/7 care with nurses, or the last one that I mentioned,
The last one.
would be $56,532.51.
Is that on top of what was budgeted last year?
Yes,
Okay.
that's adding to the budget from last year.
Okay.
So if we go under that 300, we don't have to have the 24/7 care.
Well, it's not that we don't have to have it. The ideal thing for us, and you got to remember, it's all liability. Okay, we have a very sickly population in our jail because of the drug usage. So we have to make sure that we're able to properly care for the inmates. State or Supreme Court rulings have always ruled in favor of the inmates when they can show that the medical care in the jail wasn't sufficient. I believe it was Estelle versus Gordon. was a Supreme Court case.
I'm
So,
just saying, we've had 247 beds, we've never had to have 24/7 care. You said if we went over 300, we had to have it by state law.
no, it's recommended. Anytime you get to about 300 to 320, they recommend 24/7 care. And obviously that's a lot more costly. So, our vendors were able to, and they're here if you have any questions for them. They came up with the idea with the medically trained personnel, that we could use that's, looked upon by our, do you have any questions? We could ask them some questions. If you have any medical questions, they'd be able to answer them.
In prior administrations, I believe that we used to have nursing on staff,
Mhm.
and then we went to the contractual piece.
Right.
So nursing to come in and, I know you're hitting on the 24-hour care, but I mean, obviously if the inmate has any trouble, your staff's gonna transport him to the hospital.
Right.
And if it's something, a major emergency, a nurse in the jail is not gonna be really to help, right? I mean,
Right.
there's
Well-
life-saving measures.
Well, the issue you run into is not necessarily, because obviously Marion General or Marion Health is close by. The issue we run into is from the time that we notice that something's going on to the time that the ambulance actually gets here. So that's what we're looking at. Did we provide the proper care? But what we're doing a lot of times is we're asking our detention staff to give medical advice or medical opinion when they're not properly trained to do that. Our medical expertise, as far as we go, is CPR. So our jail staff, our detention staff they're all trained in CPR, but that's as far as it goes. Like for instance, with the individual that passed away, that ended up being a heart issue. So it was natural causes, but we have had issues when there's fights or things of that nature, that it's beneficial to the county to have someone say, yes, they need to go to the hospital, or no, we can wait till tomorrow to send them to the hospital. Because when you're sending people to the hospital, what that does, now you're reducing our number of staff that we have in the jail. Because now someone has to go and sit with them for the time that they're in the hospital. So it is better to have someone that has more training, more experience to make those calls than having jail or detention staff making the calls themselves. From a liability standpoint.
Obviously, that's, your opinion of running the jail. I just question if you was to budget the full amount at 960,000. Shouldn't review going back to maybe to healthcare in-house, at that point.
I don't think he's asking for the 960.
Yeah, I'm not asking for the 960. That's something that you will have to decide as far as the budget, what you want to budget for that. What you have to remember with our vendors, we also have, they cover us with liability from their company that their people will cover us with, and we won't be held liable. So if you go back to hiring our own nursing staff, I mean, nurses are making $100 an hour. I mean, it's pretty expensive if you go to hiring our own nursing staff, and then you add on the liability back onto the county. Yeah, and part of that's for malpractice insurance, some of the coverages, so.
So you're asking for the 460 plus option 1, 2, or 3?
Right. Anything we can get to better us off, or to make us better and to increase our coverage or care of the inmates, takes us a long way. I mean, obviously, the best solution is a 24/7 care, but we know that money can be tight at times, and we have to go with what we can do. That's why we have those 3 options.
What do you mean by medically trained personnel? Are we talking like CNAs or what are we?
All that, Mr. Scroggins,
Yes.
Yeah, come to the podium and state your name and who you present, please.
Good evening.
Did
My name is Lisa Scroggins. I own Quality Correctional Care, and I worked for 14 years for Delaware County Sheriff's Office. So I've been in many, many, many budget hearings over the course of the years, but it has been a while. So one of the things that we talked about when the sheriff and I first started talking after he took office was the increased liability as it relates to accepting people into the jail. Once they cross your threshold, you start booking, then they become the responsibility of the county. If you have medical staff, medically trained personnel, they can screen some of those people out for instance, if someone has been Narcan on the street, you don't necessarily want to accept them into the jail right away because Narcan wears off quickly and they can still OD in jail. Medical staff understand that and can reject them to the hospital for clearance before they're accepted in the jail and become the responsibility of the county. That's really why there's not a lot of work to be done during the hours of sleep as it relates to medical care. We're here to react to emergencies, but most importantly, we're here to react to that's when a lot of people are arrested who are either high or drunk or, and they become a liability risk for the jail. So that's what medical staff at night really is best suited to help reduce or at least contain your exposure to liability risk. Our medically trained personnel are, yes, CNAs, with the exception of the fact that we train in-house, our program is approved by the state, but we don't do any like bed turning, like you do in a nursing home, the rolling of a patient. So we don't have that portion of that certification. So that's why they're called MTPs instead of CNAs or QMAs. Because we don't ever do any, rolling or diaper changes, that kind of stuff that would maybe happen in a nursing home.
Are there any questions?
Can I ask from an industry standard, is your job market, are you having trouble filling those jobs like everyone else?
We represent 80% of the sheriffs in the state of Indiana.
Okay.
And we have 350 employees, 354, I think, today. The short answer is yes, it's a struggle. That's why we developed our own training program, and we are certified through the Indiana Law Enforcement Academy training. So all of our training does count for their officers. So we couldn't really during COVID find nurses to hire. So we figured out a way to grow our own. We find these people that are really interested, they understand the work. Then if they're willing to go out to nursing school, we can help them with that. But yes, hiring nurses is the bane of my existence right now.
Any other questions or comments?
Is it possible to get copies of the options?
Of course.
This is,
Happy to send you whatever you'd like.
this is the first, obviously, that we're hearing of it. And so, I mean, my thought is to at least table this portion so we have time to review the options. But if we could get our hands a copy of them, we can definitely take a look at it. We're not under a crunch to approve this right now.
Sure.
So.
Well, we're happy to help any way we can. I did want to mention, every Indiana Sheriff's Association, National Sheriff's Association, American Correctional Association, NCCHC, they all recommend that you outsource medical. You want that extra layer of protection between the county and lawsuits. So we provide med malpractice insurance. It is very, very difficult to find med malpractice insurance that will walk inside and cover inside a jail facility because it's such a litigious environment. So I actually started my own med malpractice insurance company a couple of years ago because it was just almost impossible to find. So that is really the main reason why we think it is a little more risky to have county employees do that work. And it's very costly. But I'm happy to help any way I can. Thank you.
And we'll get that information to you, Mr.
Yeah,
Seth.
thank you.
That's all we have.
Is there any other questions regarding categories 2 and 3? As well as category 4? Yeah, I agree, Mr. Scott. It'd be nice to have all the figures in front of you to break down the hours and see what the best bang for your buck is.
Mm-hmm.
But if there's no other questions, I'd entertain a motion.
Mr. President, regarding the Sheriff's Department categories, Category 2 as presented, Category 3 as presented with the following change, tabling medical and hospital, Category 4 as presented.
Second.
I have a motion for Mr. Scott, a second for Mr. Poland to approve within the sheriff's budget category 2, category 3, tabling the medical and hospital portion and approving category 4 as presented. Any other questions or comments from the members? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, same sign. Motion carries. We'll go to the
We have more.
To the detention budget.
I believe the detention budget, was that not zeroed out?
It's
In the-
zeroed out, so the contractual services is at the 400.
Yeah, we're leaving that the same. That seemed to work out pretty good last year. It seems like we've spent a little more this year than we did last year. But I think we should be pretty good with it. So I think we kept that the same.
Any questions or comments regarding the detention budget category 3? There's no questions. I entertain a motion.
Mr. President, move to approve detention as presented.
Second.
I have a motion from Mr. Scott, a second from Mr. Connor to approve the detention budget categories 2 and 3 as presented. Any other questions or comments? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, same sign. Motion carries. The work crew salaries. Any questions there? Yeah, I think that well union, right?
Correct. That, just to remind you, that is, we did add that one new position that will, part of that salary will be for the work crew for Gas City that will be paid by Gas City.
If there's no other questions or comments, you guys are on.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Do we need a break or do we want to continue on? The next department before us this evening will be the health department.
Here yet? He's traveling the truck.
Okay,
Not here yet, so. I don't care if the commissioner's gonna go ahead of.
we'll go ahead and do, since Mr. Hicks is here, we'll go ahead and do the E911 and central dispatch.
It's raining and it's just got a can't button. Pick up right up. All right.
Good evening, gentlemen.
Good evening.
For the personnel, I would just do a 5% across the board. With the exception of my part-time dispatchers, I would ask that their hourly salary be made up to the same as what the full-time dispatchers would be hourly, whatever that would be. At 5%, that rate would be $19.67 on the hour.
Trying to find you, Kevin.
That's okay. I'm at the very bottom.
Everybody's flipping.
Yeah. We're good.
Requesting the same rate per hour for the part-time.
Yes, sir.
Are we doing E911 or something dispatch first?
4922. 12. Well, no,
What?
22.
hang on. Let me flip screens here.
22 is first of all.
Okay, then for salaries, that would be a 5% increase then for myself and my operations manager.
Are there any questions or comments regarding 911 salaries portion?
I would also ask that longevity, if it's bumped up for other departments, be bumped up for mine as well.
There's no questions for the members. You can see down.
Okay,
We have the updated sheets.
okay. So for the contractual services, that went from 100,000 to 169.5. The reason for that is our communication sites. We budgeted 100,000 last year, not knowing what that cost was going to be. Just before the budget was due, I did get a price from J&K for $100,000 to maintain the 3 tower sites we have and the equipment in those tower sites. Then there was an additional 32,000, I believe it was, for the equipment that's in dispatch itself. So those are 2 separate items for that. Yes, sir. And then Cushing, or the CAD software also comes out of that. and that's roughly 25,000. So
Are we due for a Cushing update as far as software?
that's all included in the annual maintenance cost. And they do push those out semi-annually, quarterly sometimes. The communication lease equipment, principal and interest, that was established by the auditor's office per the agreement that was signed with, it was, I believe it was US Bank. For the purchase of the equipment, the telephone, that is the payment for the AT&T equipment, the 911 stuff. That is under contract until 2027. Training education, I left at 20,000. Repair and maintenance left at 10,000. Dues and subscriptions, I left at 750. And then the equipment, I left at 20,000.
I know Mr. McCord, Angie had worked on this as well as you.
Yes, we met yesterday morning.
Request supports the funds.
And I was asked to get the amount that we will be getting next year, and that is $431 or $431,100. This is a guaranteed amount, and they don't know what the 9010 will be until October.
Guaranteed 431,000.
Yes,
The E911 funds a fee fund or it's.
correct. Landline and cell.
There's no other questions or comments from the members. I'd entertain a motion regarding categories 2, 3, 4.
Mr. President, move to approve categories 2, 3, and 4 in E911 as presented.
Second.
I have a motion from Mr. Scott, second from Mr. Connor to approve within the 12.2 E911 fund categories 2, 3, and 4 as presented. Any other questions or comments? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, same sign. Motion carries. We'll go to this central dispatch operation.
So that's strictly salaries. Again, 5% discount or discount, 5% increase.
Second time you just.
Well, you know, I try to be fiscally responsible, but my dispatchers would greatly appreciate a pay raise, 5%. And there, I would like to make the request that my part-timers be bumped up to the same hourly base rate as my full-time staff. And again, if there's any increase in longevity, that also be shared with my staff.
Any other questions or comments? If there are none, I believe that's all we have.
Okay. I would like to also make it known that I do have just now 4 openings, so we're down to 1 hand instead of 2 on openings. So that's 1 more hiring round and we'll be fully staffed.
Good.
So thank you.
Thank you. I see the Commissioner walk in, correct? We'll go ahead and the next department before us this evening will be the Commissioners.
I've got paperwork upstairs, or I've got the digital version up here, if I can call it up here in a second. Thank you, ma'am. Do you want to start with the,
We'll start with the personnel piece.
unlike the dispatch director, I asked for 10% because that's standard of living right now. And we just did that out of principle. We know that you guys are going to do what needs to be done, but just wanted to call that to your attention that the national standard of living is 10%. So put that in front of you.
That's the highest I've heard tonight. I've heard 3 to 8. Now you're saying 10, so I'm not sure who to believe.
That's the research that we got. So Social Security Administration is, I think, who we try and follow.
Is that what they said?
That's what I have been following.
Is there any questions or comments regarding the commissioner's salary request? There are none. We proceed on to your budget.
Next set of numbers, I think that's what would be your second page, 1000 series. Is that section 3, account 3000?
2,000 supplies.
Okay, well, that was on the first page. I'm sorry. Again, for most of our budget, there are a couple of additional items, but again, we've used that 10% bump on all of what we did probably over last year.
I know, when it comes to supplies, you went from 5,000 to
11,000, yeah.
Project motors from 18,000 to 50,000. And the other two categories there are the same.
Pretty much all of our garage and motors. That doesn't just cover the commissioner's office. That covers all of our vehicles that are not covered under the EMA and or the highway department. This will be for maintenance, upkeep, new tires, that type of thing for a fleet of vehicles that we've acquired over the last few years.
On the categories 3 to 6. Just want to go through them. You can, we found those.
Contractual services right at the top is probably our biggest change. We still are paying out for envoy contracts. Most of all of our additional contracts that we have been doing this year have gone into that. If you'll note, we've already had expenses of 239,000. And so we're anticipating that when we get to through the year, we will be right at about the $275,000 mark. So that's why we've projected that for the year. Vehicle insurance, that's going up. Janitorial contractual, we have 200,000 in there. We are currently, I think the year end will be right at about $180,000. And we're starting to wrestle again with the decision on whether to contractually put those services out or look at a group of janitorial personnel again. We did save money the first few years, but we've increased cleaning requirements. And so the price has been going up with the additional buildings that we've got.
So when is that contract up for renewal?
I can't tell you that right offhand, but we do have a 30-day notice clause in there if we have to, which we're still pleased with what Don's cleaning service has been doing for us. Contractual services legal, that is the general cost of our county attorney. Disaster response, we continue to maintain that $50,000 a year line. You'll note the auditor has placed a notation on there. We are currently at $150,000. The ordinance that we had passed will cap at $250,000. So if we do not have disaster monies that we have to spend, that comes to a point. Much like what we do with the drainage board, if we don't spend and we get a full amount of revenue in that line item cuts off until we need to use it. once we start using it again, then we will replenish the fund. So
Fresh my memory, what it, is there an ordinance or?
we did an ordinance on that 3 years ago.
It's listed on there. It says ordinance number 7/2020. I didn't put that on here.
It was it spelled out specifically what the disaster was?
That would be along the FEMA lines. For example, we spent in the drainage board almost $6,000 in cleaning up some ditches out around Swayze following the tornado. We don't have any other funds that can be used to clean that up. So we may have to draw from that by the end of the year just to take care of things.
Okay, thank you.
Moving further south. We've got the central dispatch portion. And our request compared to his request, I believe that's just salary there.
It is. We may be able to lower that down to the original $511,000 amount because there is cash balance in there. That's going to be determined on what you guys decide to do.
Should we just table that line then, Bill, with special session?
I think you got your cricket.
Wait a minute, which line?
City
Dispatch. Yeah.
Legal services, that next line item, those are services outside the scope of our attorney that can be for use for anything with the jail, anything that we're doing with contractors. So that's a separate item besides what we pay our attorney.
Next change is in the telephone.
How far down?
Telephone.
Okay.
It went from 120,000 to 150.
I'll probably ask for a little help from Marcus on that, but I think that is so that we can tie in our phone system out with the EMS building and are we projecting more cost with telephone service? We've got about $30,000 more than what we did.
I don't know if that's just because of the internet service we're getting put in out there. And we're going with a dedicated AT&T line. As far as the phones go, they'll be tied back here for the county.
And that's voice over internet.
Yeah, correct.
Okay.
I do have a question about that.
Mhm.
The highway department currently pays for telephone out of their budget, like they continue to
No,
pay? They won't-
no, so
Why
the
would
idea
they
was,
continue to pay?
no, they wouldn't. So when we get them moved over to our system, they wouldn't. The plan was to shut down their internet circuit and stuff to get them fed off of EMS. That way we had one internet provider for both of them. That way we can shut down.
We can talk about that later.
Yeah.
Okay. Let's see, optometry looks the same. Publications. Do you see another one that's jumped up? Yeah, that's. I'm just gonna
Inflation.
say that's a cost of living, yeah. And the sirens, by the way, are for southeastern Grant County and Van Buren area, not us, locally, immediately.
Just our houses. Just our houses, yeah.
It'll go off a little while yet this evening.
Got your insurance.
They're actually going off for Hawaii.
I'm sorry?
It's going off for Hawaii. It's just a little late.
It's definitely late for Hawaii. Anything else that you see?
Air building and structure jumped up double, not quite double, but from 215 to 400.
Yes, and depending on what we get done yet this year, the whole facade on this building needs to be redone and sealed. And that's not going to be cheap. So we're trying to, if we don't get some of that done yet this year, then we'll have to get it done in the spring of next year.
Any other questions or comments regarding category 3? Go ahead and do category 4 if you want one.
The only thing that really, I think, is the big change is that you're taking ambulance out of CCD and you put it here in a capital outlay line item. Remodeling and repair.
Yeah. CCD will support the payment, so that's why it was moved to your budget. We've talked about great conversations and what the commissioners are in charge of the plan with the CARES Act money. It seems to me that the CARES Act money, paying that ambulance lease, and make the payment just paying on something that would save some money.
We can definitely check with that. As long as we fall under the amount of, we haven't designated a certain amount as the recovery amount, but there's a certain amount there that once we designate that, we can use it for almost anything. And so we'd have to check and make sure that that's done, but we have not designated funds that way yet.
I think that'd be something I'd want to look at, but pretty hard on how to, I don't know if we end up getting the interest rate locked in or not, but I want to say it was around that 5% one.
And now it's time to wait.
So,
And again, we may not see these ambulances until the end of the next fiscal year here. So.
okay. Any other questions? There are none. I'll entertain a motion. You get approve categories 2, approve category 3, tabling the central dispatch county portion, and approve the category 4 as presented.
I'll make that motion.
Second.
Second.
Mr. Collins to approve within the commissioner's budget categories 2 and 3, but tabling the central dispatch portion. And just due to the fact that we can adjust that payment at the end of the budget process, approving category 4 as presented. Any other questions or comments? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, same sign. Carries.
Do you have drainage board up next or?
Correct.
We asked for the increase in salary for the secretary. And as well, you see an addition there of $3,000 to raise the portion of the board members. They have not had a raise probably since 2003, 4, 5, somewhere in there. And I think, is that, I don't have it right in front of me. I think that's a $25. Yeah. So it'd be,
It's 50 per meeting.
and we're recommending 75. Yeah.
And this is a general question. Do elected officials get the board payment?
The elected official on this board does. It's considered outside the scope. Initially, when it was just 3 commissioners, we changed it so that we had representatives from across the county instead of 3 commissioners.
Is that the same way to the health board as well? I guess that'd be,
Health board.
is the health board, which is an elected official that sits on the health board seat?
Uh,
No, we don't?
No,
See one?
no.
Any other questions or comments regarding the drainage board requests, categories 2 and 3? No other questions or comments? I entertain a motion.
Mr. President, move to approve drainage board categories 2 and 3 as presented.
Second.
I have a motion by Mr. Scott, a second from Mr. Perez to approve within the drainage board fund categories 2 and 3 as presented. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, same sign. Motion carries.
I've got CCD and jail maintenance and then data processing. I think Marcus is going to cover.
Yeah, what is jail maintenance, son?
Looks like we're asking to hold, these are supplemental on the salary and repair of equipment. So holding what we did last year.
Questions or comments regarding the jail maintenance fund?
Mr. President, regarding jail maintenance, move to approve repair of equipment as presented.
Is there a second?
Second.
I have a motion from Mr. Scott, second from Mr. Poling to approve within the jail maintenance fund category 3 as presented. Any other questions or comments from the members? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Next would be the CCD fund.
Reference CCD, again, this was kind of manipulated to help with the expected revenue that comes in with CCD. My greatest point is probably for sheriff's vehicles, our last line item there. They're right at about $45,000 a piece right now. So we will squeeze in to be lucky to get 3 units this next year. We'll probably manipulate some of these other things and ask for transfers as we get a better look on next year as well.
Any questions or comments regarding CCDs 3 and 4 categories? 2, 3, and 4, I guess. No questions or comments. I'd entertain a motion. And obviously, this fund can only support what money's in the fund.
We have not done anything to raise that at all. And maybe that's something we have to look at in the future. But at this point, the revenue, we just tried to work with the revenue that comes in.
Mr. President, regarding CCD, move to approve categories 2, 3, and 4 as presented.
Second.
Second. Polling to approve within the CCD fund categories 2, 3, and 4 as presented. Any other questions or comments from the members? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, same sign. Motion carries.
I think that covers me. Oh, insurance review. Okay. I'll be glad to try and answer any questions you have on those figures. We did have an opportunity to sit down with the auditor as we reviewed some things on current costs and situations. As I understand it, we're looking to hold at that $5 million or so mark and go from there. We have had good reports. We do have at least one employee that could be lasered in the future, which again, we've done our best to have no lasered individuals in our group, but this is someone that has had multiple issues that has cost us. And so the insurance company may decide to laser that individual and not give certain discounts and breaks because of that.
The total for the fund would be 7 million. It's typically what we put in the health insurance fund and take actions.
How was the sign contract?
We review annually. We currently have a broker that we won't make a change with and won't review until next year. But we are currently with UMR, and we had left Anthem because of well, we saved almost $700,000 by making that switch, and we have continued to save money with this new program. So right now, we're not intending on making a switch until we see some really unusual changes in the market.
Any other questions or comments from the members? Entertain a motion to approve the health insurance fund in its entirety.
So moved.
Second.
A motion from Mr. Khan, a second, Mr. Scott, to approve the health insurance fund and full fund in its entirety. Any other questions or comments from the members? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, same sign. Motion carries. I believe that's all we have for you, Commissioner.
Thank you.
So we'll move on to the guy that keeps all this electronic stuff working, right?
Oh, absolutely. We try our best.
Go ahead and, you know, the procedures.
Yep. Yes, sir. So, for salaries, I went with the same, 10%, just for the, cost of living. That was the recommendation, we went with. Obviously we would, appreciate any salary we can get. So I'll just leave it at that. Our overtime, I went ahead and just left it the same. And that is it out of the first item.
Okay. I'm not hearing anything, Marcus.
Okay.
Proceed on.
Yep. Under contractual services, I basically left it the same as last year. Last year I did get we got a $10,000 increase in that, and I feel this would be fine for 2024.
He did provide a copy.
Yeah, a breakdown.
Of the contractual piece at your table this evening.
Yeah.
Appreciate that.
Yeah, no problem. Travel, I left it 500. Training, I left it at 3,000. Purdue, we never spent any money out of that budget, so I think it was last year I had it recommended to be zeroed out. So I don't know if that money got moved to their budget or not. Security software, I left it the same, 50,000. Last year it was initially 40, but we got $10,000 increase on it. FTR maintenance, I left it the same. That's been working out pretty good at 8,000. And the GIS software, we decided to leave it at 35,500.
Do you know, I didn't ask the sheriff, but that Stanley software,
Yeah, we're still in the process of getting a meeting put together.
the dollar amount that we paid Stanley, did that get added in the budget somewhere?
That I don't know. Yeah, I think it's under contractual. So
I just wanted to make sure. I know we talked about.
yes. Yeah, and I spoke with Commissioner Bardsley and Sheriff, and we all want to get together and iron that out.
Okay.
It's just getting everybody in the room together.
I was just making sure there was not gonna be.
No, it's not. No, sir. No, I'm not going to forget about that one. So.
Okay, any other questions or comments regarding categories 3 and 4 within data processing? Well, I guess she did lower it a little bit, so. Okay, if there's no other questions or comment, I'd entertain a motion.
Mr. President, move to approve categories 3 and 4 for our data processing IT department.
Second.
I have a motion from Mr. Scott, a second from Mr. Poling to approve categories 3 and 4 within data processing. Any other questions or comments from the members? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, same sign. Motion carries.
And then the last one is our equipment. And I left it the same. And like I said, I mean, that's pretty much it.
Yep, we approved it.
Yep. Oh, okay. Like I said, I didn't even know it's at the bottom, so I wasn't
I
sure.
did say four, didn't I?
Oh, like, all right. Well, like, I appreciate it, gentlemen. Thank you so much. No, hey, appreciate that. Thanks again, guys.
Yeah, I appreciate the sheet without two thanks. Thank you.
Yeah.
No problem. Thank you. I think we're ready for the last department. Will be the health department. Let's take a 5-minute recess.
Yeah.
Recess has ended. The next department before us this evening will be the health department. Again, as you know, like in years past, we'll listen to all your requests. However, we don't take any action on the personnel piece, but if you would, start with the personnel piece, please.
I will, and I'm going to ask you to reconsider that because we have to have the Health First Indiana Fund budget submitted by September 1st. I'm not sure that it's not fixable at a later date, but that is the requirement for the state funding that we've accepted. Can I move this back? So I'll discuss the personnel and you can decide what you want to do. I took into consideration a concern at the last meeting when I believe it was, I don't remember which councilman, asked what we would do if the funding disappeared. So when I considered the personnel piece, I kept leadership on the county fund, every position that you would have to have if all of the state funding went away. I kept them on the county fund and switched every other employee, new and current, over to the state funding. I did, you have a piece of paper, do they have this?
The green sheet. Oh, yeah, that one.
The way I determine salaries, well, let me go back. We have one position that has been office manager, registrar, like a dual position. Because of the additional funding and the additional responsibility, the health board had decided to divide that into two positions, having an administrator and a head of vital records. So it's kind of one position divided into two. We also were wanting to add we'll need to add a school liaison. We have one nurse that's a part-time, she's 4 day a week. We would like to move her to full-time. She's been grant funded. And we would move her onto the Health First Indiana Fund. We will need to hire an additional environmental health specialist to be able to do the new requirements of the state funding. And because we will need to add a vital records clerk. Currently, there are 2 full-time people in vital records. One will be moved to the administrator role, so we would need an additional vital records clerk. The way I came up with the salaries on the page with when the state of Indiana, when the Governor's Public Health Commission met and went through all of these stages, one of the things that they did was a workforce assessment. They came back with recommended salaries for the positions. You'll see that most of these, even though they are pay increases for our employees, still do not meet the state recommended salaries for our population. So these are, in full transparency, approximately $5,000 pay increases for every health department employee. The state gave us the money to build our workforce to do a better job. And that's what I'm trying to do. We are struggling. We have an open position now that we're struggling to get qualified applicants for.
What position is that?
The environmental health specialists. And every county around us is taking this funding. So they're going to have additional funds. I'm worried they're going to lure my people away if I don't pay them better, which has happened many times in the past. So I would ask you to consider the proposed salaries. We can come back and discuss it later if we have to.
Well, it's Angie.
And the grant has been approved,
It's not a grant, but yes, the
or
funding is.
the funding has been approved.
The final amount I do not have yet. It will not be any less than the 775,000 that they committed to. There are, I believe, 8 health departments in the state that have not opted in to date. If they don't, then their funding will be divided amongst the counties that did. So there's a slight possibility for some additional funding, but it won't go below the dollar amount that they've given us.
Are you gonna pay, you're gonna pay the school at liaison?
It should be an RN,
Okay.
yeah.
To me, I guess if the funding is there, it's outside general fund and
Not all of them are outside general fund. I mean, to be
everything,
fair.
everything here under the 1161
Correct.
is. And that's what you need approved before.
Well, it is, but I would like to just be mindful, I can't bring in new employees and pay them more than current employees and have that work. So, does that make sense?
So you're asking us to give 5,000 on our side too, for the ones that's already
I
working?
need to look at my final budget and it's still less, I mean, it's less than last year's final budget, so yes, I am asking that.
Yeah.
But our total budget request,
So I guess I'll summarize it. You're asking for the salary piece, 5,000 for
approximately,
whatever percent that is, I figured
I didn't either.
for the county employees. And then the grant, or not grant, but the
State funding.
state funding, those salaries are new salaries at a X amount. You want to bring the other salaries into that amount, which that's how you come up with.
Some of them are new positions, yes, brand new positions, the environmental health specialist, the school liaison. It's gonna be real hard to look at my current nurse who's been here several years and say, I'm gonna hire a new one making $5,000 a year more than you.
So is that the same with the environmental? Because that's not a new position, right?
No, we are asking for one new environmental position out of the state funding.
2 more, because you're down 1, right?
We're interviewing for that, yes.
3 altogether.
Yes, we're gonna have to have 3 to meet the requirements for the new state funding.
Okay.
I believe I emailed you all those KPIs and services. Pardon?
Yes, I see that.
Did you? It was a lot, I know, to digest. It was my attempt at full transparency. So we're to move on to the regular budget. Do you have any questions?
Is there any questions? I mean, you're saying we need to approve this so you can submit it by the September.
We've discussed, I don't know what's gonna happen if you won't approve it, and, I mean, I'll just submit what I've provided to you, and if I have to go back later and say, well, that's not what they approved, they approved something different, I can do that, I just don't know what that's gonna look like.
You're wanting us to approve the 5,000 for the people that's already working there. So you can file this paperwork?
Yeah, I'm asking you to approve everything I submitted, yes, and you can tell me no.
Well, to me, The difficulty is going to be if we approve the $5,000 increase for those that's in the 1161. People in 1159 are going to expect a $5,000 raise, and they are general fund, and there's no guarantee they're going to get that 5,000 at this point until we get to the budget hearing.
Remember that by accepting this state funding, you are required to budget $638,000 for the health department this year. You do remember that, correct?
Yeah, you see what I'm saying though? Because we could approve 1163, we could approve that tonight with the salary,
1161,
1161,
yes.
yeah. But the 1159 is general funds. Can't pass that, and there's no guarantee that they would get the increases that you are providing in 61.
I do understand that. And I think the point I'm trying to make, I submitted a budget from 1159 for $638,000, $638,740. Cannot, if we accept the state funding, you cannot budget $1 less than that regardless.
Or we don't pay the state.
Or we don't get the state funding, correct? So that's why I felt like asking you to go ahead and approve it all tonight wasn't unreasonable, but it might. You see what I'm saying? If you take away those pay increases, I'm gonna have to redo this budget and spend that money, that 1159 funding on something, because you are required to budget that dollar amount.
Just like the always had two, at least I've been in business 40 years.
That is correct.
And all of a sudden we need three and we're losing population and we're losing
But the
people.
requirements for accepting the money,
We're just wanting to do this to accept money so we can get some more money from the state, is what you're saying.
I'm saying to accept $775,000 from the state this year and the 1.4 million next year, you do have to spend $638,704 this year. Next year, you have to spend 20% of the 1.4 million. You have to match.
So if we can't get the salaries in 1159 up to what you requested, we could move those dollar amounts to other like supplies
Yes.
or other services
Yes, sir.
or whatever.
Yes, we can do that. I will just have to reconfigure the budget.
And maybe we don't, but I'm just trying to think ahead a little bit to try to protect your department and what we're trying to accomplish too.
I believe I would have anarchy though if my new staff gets more than me.
Yeah.
The current staff to the other positions.
I can make that switch, but there's a lot to it because of the state funding.
I know.
60% of it has to be nursing and health services, and only 40% of it can be spent on environmental services. So the environmental health specialists and food safety officers have to be in that 40%. I know it's a lot. It's crazy, isn't it, Angie?
Now we need three people for the environmental. We've never.
Because we're required to do pool inspections.
Understand what you're saying. Listen to me for a second. So we're gonna have another person. I understand that you're saying that we're gonna get this money.
Mhm.
But we're still gonna hire another person. Do we need that person? Do we really need three environmental people?
If you don't accept the funding, no.
I'm not asking about the funding. I'm asking, do we really need three environmental people?
If you don't spend it on another environmental person, you gotta spend it someplace else.
I
No,
understand that.
no, no.
To save that.
I'd like the answer to that question too, and he's asked it 3 times.
Oh,
Yes or no?
yeah.
Thank you.
If you accept the funding, yes, because to meet like the school liaison, we don't have to have one unless we accept the money. And to meet the 4 standards that I emailed to you, that the state put forward for accepting the funding, you have to have a school liaison. We will have to do pool inspections. We will.
I understand.
Lead
You
inspections.
do full inspections now.
No, we do not. Only on complaints. Only on complaints. We accept
My
water.
wife worked in that health department for 10 years.
Yes, she did.
Do pool
Yes,
inspections.
she did.
She did.
She did.
My point, you're missing my whole point. My whole point is, do we really need 3 environmental people when I've been in business 40 years, we've only had 2. My wife worked there for 4 years and she only had her and she did all this. I'm just saying, we're adding more employees. I understand you're getting that money from the state, but it's still all taxpayers' money, correct?
No, I'm not sure how I should answer that at this point. The
What-
bottom line is,
What's your proposal to do with
No,
that?
my bottom line is,
Wait, no,
you're,
listen.
you're wanting to hire these more people to get this money. I understand this.
No.
But do we
no, that-
really need those people? Because
I think you're.
I've been on, wait a minute, I've been on this board for 3 years. And last year, year before, you did away with the school,
we
say,
don't,
yeah,
we did not have a school liaison. That was
We did.
she was a health educator, which is a completely different position. It's a completely different position. I can show you right here what the job description for a school liaison is, and that is not what the tobacco educator did.
I mean, obviously, that there's a lot of guidelines that the state has.
And the money comes with strings. Yes, sir.
It looks like though, even if we do you've included the insurance piece in the funding from the state, right? As far
Pardon?
as the health insurance piece. Which
Yes,
is in the group insurance line item. correct?
yes, yes.
Goes as far as, extra dollars to the county or extra cost, more employees. So the fund is gonna pick up.
Did I include, I did include all of the cost of new employees, correct? Yes, yeah, we double and triple checked that. I calculated the cost for the new employees, just like I calculate them for current employees.
Yeah, and to meet the guidelines, if you was to say have 2 environmental specialists, what could you do at the other position, so to speak, to make it still in compliance with the state dollars? Is there any other?
They're overwhelmed the way it is with, our complaints are up 30%. You mean, how could I make the 2 people handle the job?
Yeah.
I probably can't. The state gave us the funding to do a thorough job and set down guidelines.
How many months have we been down just at Jeff at the?
I think Doug left a month ago, 6 weeks ago. There will be additional duties and responsibilities. There will be additional training required, additional certifications.
And then how, this is we're locked in for how many things?
Just, we can opt out at any time,
Okay.
anytime, yes. I mean, once we accept the money and spend the money, we have to vote.
Yeah.
But if we decided in February to quit, we can give it all back.
Obviously, the state wants us to focus on, health, and
Public health, correct.
this is their way of making us accountable. And making us,
They want us to go out and fire and.
I think I would be fine.
It's our portion that the state allotted. I don't know how they get that figure. Part of it
It's
is
2 and 3, and then in 1161, I would average 1, 2, 3, and 4, and then come back later. Raises or so to speak to try to go to the $5,000 mark. I mean, obviously, we'll probably have to do that anyway. To meet the 638,703 by the state. It would give you an option later to think about.
So the 638 is less than last year's budget.
It is. It had to be the average of the last 3 years.
Is that how it was?
Mhm.
Yeah, overall, we're saving money.
And you will save more next year.
Yes. It's just, yeah. Okay, any other questions or comments?
You want to handle both funds in the same motion, or you want them separate?
It's up to you. I didn't change that.
We'll do them separate. Mr. President, regarding Health Fund 1159, I move to approve categories 2, 3, and 4 as presented.
Second.
I I have a motion for Mr. Scott, a second from Mr. Connor to approve bid 1159 Health Fund categories 2, 3, and 4 as presented. Any other questions or comments from the members? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, same sign. One no. Motion carries. We'll move on to the 1161.
Mr. President, regarding Fund 1161, I move to approve. Move to approve as presented, categories 1, 2, 3, and 4.
Second.
Motion from Mr. Scott, a second from Mr. Connor to approve within the 1161, the local public health service categories 1, 2, 3, and 4. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 All those opposed, same sign. No. One no. Motion carries. What else do you have for us?
You want me to go over the regular budget or that, are we done? That's it?
You're all done. You're all done.
I know the issue with it, I'll talk about it.
Okay.
Obviously, we got to think about the state's rules when it comes to those funding mechanisms. Angie, do you have anything else you'd like to add?
No.
Any other members? We'll be in recess till Wednesday, August 23rd.